did not want to lay down and die. My core philosophical values and belief systems is that this is all there is. Whatever I do with it, that's my life. That will be how I'm remembered. That is what people will see. Whatever joy or suffering or pain or happiness or success or laughter or connections, this is all there is. And if I just sit at home and do nothing, and then I will just be remembered as the guy who sat at home and did nothing. And I don't want to be remembered that way.
You're listening to Inside Bipolar, a Healthline Media podcast, where we tackle bipolar disorder using real-world examples and the latest research.
Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. My name is Gabe Howard and I live with bipolar disorder.
And I'm Dr. Nicole Washington, a board-certified psychiatrist.
Today's topic is all about not giving up on your bipolar treatment. Unfortunately, one of the common stereotypes, and it's a stereotype for a reason, is that people give up on their bipolar treatments, either because they're not working and trying something new that's just not in them, or because they've been stable for a long time and they're just like, you know what? I don't think this is a problem anymore. And then they just want to quit. Now, this topic came from Dr. Nicole, and I'm really struggling to wrap my head around it. Do you see this episode as being like motivational? Do you have like takeaways, or are you just going to go like full on rage and be like, stop it, don't do that. It's a bad idea. I really don't know what you have in mind.
I would never yell at people like that. Only you. I would never yell at my patients like that. When I was thinking about this episode, there were actually a couple of things that came to mind. One, I think that there are people who really struggle with finding reasons not to give up. It's hard for them to come up with, why would I go through all this? Why am I going through all this fight? It feels like nothing's changing. It feels like I'm still sick. I'm still in a hospital. I'm still dealing with all this stuff. I'm still taking these meds. Why? Like, why do I go on? I think people sometimes struggle. And I did want to talk about the reasons that people give as to why they continue to fight. Now, on the flip side of that, Gabe, I also will say, when I have patients who keep fighting, man, the people I see who have been like in mental health treatment for 20, 25, 30 years, they've tried all the meds, they've done all the things, and they really do keep fighting. Sometimes I just want to ask, like, what keeps you going? Like, what keeps you going? Like, how do you keep fighting?
Well, that's a lot to cover. But okay. So the specific question that you want to ask me is why I don't give up. Is that the
not why you don't give up, but why do you fight? Maybe that's a better word. I don't want to say, well, why don't you just quit? Because that sounds like I'm saying, give it up, throw in the towel, go lay down, give it up. But I want to know, like, what keeps you fighting? Why do you fight? You've been doing this for 2 decades now, and it hasn't always been easy for you. You haven't always been stable. There's all kinds of things that happen. How do you find that drive to fight?
I don't know that I was always this way. I think that's important to say that this desire to fight has not always been internal. Sometimes it's been external, but I think that there are some lessons that I learned along the way that have really kept my motivation up. We've talked about on this show before that I'm really lucky to be surrounded by good people. And sometimes those good people have snapped. There is a story that I don't know that I've ever shared on this podcast before about my first few months after being diagnosed. And I came home from the intensive outpatient treatment program, and I was really excited because I told my friend that I was going to get disability and live my life on disability, and it was available to people with bipolar disorder, and I was really excited. And she said very calmly at first, she's like, "Well, I don't think we're there yet, right? Like, you haven't tried to go back to work. You know, we're trying to get you stable. Like, you've got a whole life ahead of you." And I was really, really targeted on this. I was like, "No, I'm getting disability, living on that way forever." And she snapped. She snapped, and she screamed at me. And she said, "What's wrong with you? Oh my God, you're like 26 years old and you're just going to quit. You're going to accomplish nothing. You're just going to sit at home for the rest of your life. What the hell is your problem?" And she was just angry. It all came out at me. And she said, I don't know how you think you're going to live on disability. Look, I'm sorry you have a sad story, right? But sad stories are not going to pay your bills. Get off your ass and do something. And she was disgusted. I mean, and the look on her face was just disgust, because all she was responding to is that I was giving up, that I was quitting. And that's a huge motivating factor for two things in my life. One, I never want anybody to look at me like that again, because that's just, it was a lot to stare down. And two, I desperately wanted to be a paid public speaker so that I could throw it back in her face that my sad stories do in fact pay my bills.
That is both sweet and hilarious at the exact same time. So for you in that moment, that sounded like, okay, this is it. Like this is how I'm going to deal with this thing. And you had that support system of people to say, but that's not enough for you.
And I want to say something real quick. I don't have a problem with the disability system. Some people need to be on disability, and my friend doesn't have a problem with the disability system.
Yes.
Her problem was that was my first choice. I hadn't really tried anything else. I gave up before I gave it any effort. Her disgust wasn't that I might need disability. Her disgust was I hadn't bothered to try.
Yes. I think that is a fine plan for someone initially at first diagnosis, while you're trying to get stable and you're trying to see where this thing lands. For some people, I think for them that is a good place to be, whether it be because of the severity of their illness or what other circumstances are involved. But then there are some people who, once they're stable in that space, they still can fight. There is still more fight to be had. The fight could be that I'm going to try to work part-time. I'm going to try to volunteer. Like those things are all still things that require you to fight. So being on disability or receiving disability income isn't giving up, but it can be given up if you know that you have the capacity to do more and you just choose not to.
I didn't start off there. I used to be a fundraiser. I used to run big events, mental health events in my town. And one of the things that we train fundraisers to do is to get people who are raising money for a cause to understand their why. It's not enough to get them to raise money. They need to understand why they're doing it. And everybody's why is different. So my mom, her why is because she loves her son. My why is because I want people with bipolar disorder to have better outcomes. My wife's why is because she wants to support her husband, and she also wants to see mental health grow, mental health treatment options grow in her community, right? Those are all very good whys. So I just applied that exact same logic to this. So why do I want to get better? Why do I want to keep fighting? Why do I want to stay stable? It's not as obvious as we think, right? Like we need to understand why we're fighting. And my personal why, Dr. Nicole, is because I don't want anybody to look at me and think that I wasted my life. I don't want to look at me and think that I wasted my life.
Mm-hmm. I would think the biggest fight would be during the depression, during those severe depressions. That's the moment when you have to fight the most to just not lay down and die, literally, sometimes. To me, it seems like that would be the hardest time to come up with reasons to fight. The whole, like, I don't have motivation. I don't want to get up. I don't want to eat. I don't want to do anything. But I hadn't thought about it in the sense of once you're stable and do you continue that same fight? Because you do have to have that same level of vigilance and awareness of your bipolar disorder, even when it's not raging and jumping up and down. I really hadn't thought of it that way.
When you're depressed, you have zero motivation to do anything. So it's sort of a different problem, right? Like one is a matter of motivation and one is a matter of complacency. And they're both difficult things. Like if you get complacent with bipolar disorder, that gives it room to work. So you need to find ways to not be complacent and to keep fighting bipolar disorder, and that's a challenge. But of course, in a deep depression, suicidal depression, your darkest moments, you don't have the ability to move forward at all. You're just a husk of a shell who is suffering in the abyss. So it's somebody's like, hey, use this coping skill, and you're barely even hearing their words. So finding any motivation to move forward is just so incredibly difficult. So I don't know. This might be like asking what's worse, breaking your leg or breaking your arm. I think they both provide unique challenges, and I both think they're just equally sucky.
But when you were in those depressions and those dark places you talk about of not being able to hear the words, so you still have the therapist doing all the therapist things and your Dr. Nicole giving you their advice, and patients have told me it's hard to just see light at all. Everything feels gray, everything feels dark. It feels easier in those moments to just give up. And I've had lots of people tell me that.
And they are right. It is easier in those moments just to give up.
But then how do you
I mean,
not?
they're not wrong.
But then how do you not? During those moments when you can't hear the words and you can't think positively about the people in your life, but there's still something inside of people that keep them going.
I got to tell you, Dr. Nicole, I'm really of two minds here. I can tell you that the second time this happened was much easier than the first time it happened, because the second time I knew that I could get through it. It was kind of it is what it is. This is a thing that happens to me. And if I can just hang on, this will eventually lift. Bipolar disorder is cyclical, it's elastic. And the second time I knew what it was. Right. I had a name for it. I understood bipolar disorder. I understood depression. I had people to call. I actually had like a treatment plan, and I had been diagnosed. So that made it so much easier. It's always easier to do something the second time than it is the first time. But I'm struggling to answer your question because I go back to that first time. How did I find the motivation to get out of it the first time? And I don't know. And I don't know that anybody really knows. And I think that we need to be a little comfortable with the idea that there is unfortunately a luck aspect. If we can cycle out, if we can hang on until we cycle, anybody listening to this who's going through it the first time, please hear my words. This too shall pass. This is temporary, and I hope to God you can believe me. You hit play on this podcast for a reason. You can trust us. We're not full of shit. We are telling you the honest to God's truth. I did it. Hundreds of thousands of people with bipolar disorder have done it. People with depression. I mean, we're into the millions at this point. Dr. Nicole treats them. They're everywhere. I want you to know you're going to be okay. But finding that whatever to get through is not easy. And I think we need to commend ourselves for that, because our brains are messing with us. You mentioned the very important example of, I'm going to do this for my kids. I'm going to do this for my spouse. I convinced myself that if I died, my mom and my grandmother, two people who love me more than anything in the world, would be pleased, that they would be happy with my decision. I had them pictured at my funeral celebrating the fact that I finally did something right after years of being a bitter disappointment. I can now tell you that was untrue. They would have been devastated. I would have ruined their lives. I would have ended mine. It would have been awful. It would have been terrible. It was the worst decision I ever could have made. So fighting through that is also difficult. But that one like magic thing that people can remember, I think anything you do outside of the depression is that one magic thing. If it's hit play on a podcast, you did it. If it's talk to somebody, you did it. If it's call your Dr. Nicole, your therapist, you did it. If it's asking for help, you did it. I think the magic cure is any step away from the suffering and the depression. Choosing to go in any direction is a vast improvement than staying there, whatever that choice is.
Yeah, I will say that the patients that I see who have had the most severe depressions, they are the most awe-inspiring to me personally, because to think through when people tell me how they felt and they tell me how they putting one foot in front of the other one was a chore. Sitting up in the bed to eat a meal was a chore. Um, just opening their eyes sometimes was a task. And to see them continue to fight that, I think takes a level of strength that just is inspiring. And I know that people who are depressed, like Dr. Nicole, I did not feel very strong in that moment. I absolutely did not feel strong in that moment. But I think there is a strength there that people just don't realize that they absolutely have in that moment, because it would have always been easier to just check out.
It is, and I do think that we need to acknowledge that doing the wrong thing is easier, but it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And I want to spend a second to talk about how we don't celebrate the little victories. And I'm as guilty of this as anybody, right? And when I say we, I don't mean people with bipolar disorder. I mean
No,
like humans.
everybody.
Like humans are just not celebrating little victories. Like they get up
No.
every day and they go to work. They make dinner for their families. They mow their lawn. They go to a movie and they're just like, my life is boring and this is all stupid. Like you're paying your own bills, you're living on your own, and you got a job, and you define your life as
Yes.
basic and we have like all the, well, she's basic.
Yeah.
He's lame. Well,
Yeah.
they're just boring. Oh, some dude from the suburbs, right? It's like, do you know how difficult it is to handle your shit every day? So this is just a human thing.
Yeah.
But let's talk about people with bipolar disorder for a minute. You're literally suffering from a brain illness. Your brain is attacking you from the inside. It's telling you that you're garbage. It's making you feel bad. You've got darkness, abyss, whatever analogy you want for depression, you can use whatever one you want. And
Yes.
then one day you crawl your butt out of bed and you take a shower and you wash your hair and you shave and then you put on clothes and those clothes are clean and you walk from your bathroom to your couch and you sit upright and you watch Netflix or Hulu or Disney Plus all day. That is incredible, because your other option was to lay in bed
Yeah.
and dwell on how miserable you were.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, you took a shower and got dressed and watched something that had a chance of bringing you joy. That is exceptional. And we never, ever celebrate the exceptional. We just don't, because we don't consider it exceptional. And even people listening to me are like, I don't know, you're like celebrating being a couch potato? You're damn right I am. I'm celebrating being a couch potato because it's a vast improvement over what you went through yesterday.
And we're back discussing how you can stay in the fight when you have bipolar disorder. I think the ability to see your wins definitely gives you more reason to fight, because when you can say, oh, I'm making progress. Oh, look, I am getting better. So you're right. Being able to look at those little things and say, well, I am better because 2 days ago, it had been a week since I showered and I've showered the last 2 days in a row. So I'm killing this thing. It is a lot easier to fight when you can see those things as victories, no matter how small they seem to you. It is a lot easier to keep the fight going. And I agree with you. We don't do a good enough job of highlighting that. I think as a support person, I don't know that we do a good enough job of highlighting that. But then I also don't know how it would be received, right? Like I could see myself telling somebody, well, that's great. Like you showered like 3 times this week. And you told me it had been 2 weeks before that. I think that's great and should be celebrated. And I could see somebody being like, you're an idiot. I showered 3 times in a week. Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. Like, what are you doing? I could see somebody getting upset. So there is a fine line there with us trying to support, but I'm just still going to do it. And y'all just going to have to get mad at me for doing it, because I'm just still going to be like, but that's great. It's just who I am.
This is one of those like really difficult things that support people have to go through, right? Acknowledging somebody's improvement is really important. And I want to encourage friends, family, support people to do that. If somebody laid in bed for 3 days and then took a shower, you should absolutely point it out. But yeah, you're wading into murky waters here, because I know that the minute you're like, oh, you took a shower today, it's like, oh, great, I did the bare minimum. I bathed myself. Oh, big deal. I think, but some of that is part of the process, right? You know, the person that you're giving that compliment to is probably not going to receive it well. Just
Yes.
buckle, just let them call you an idiot, let them
Yes.
insult themselves, and
Yes.
let them sit down and watch TV and, maybe order a pizza. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
I think sometimes we try to challenge things too quickly in the moment. Like, no, I'm really proud of you. A shower's good. Oh, everybody showers. Well, you didn't yesterday. Oh, great. Now you're fighting with me. Like,
Yeah.
why do that? Hey, I'm really glad you got up today and took a shower. Oh, well, great. I did the bare minimum. And say nothing. Just
I
just
mean,
just move along.
I typically will tell my patients, listen, if I say something like that to them and they give me that look, that look you give when somebody's like, oh, here you go. And I tell them, listen, I know that you're depressed, and I know that in your depression, you don't have the ability to cheer for yourself right now. You don't have the ability to celebrate yourself. You don't have the ability to think positive things about yourself. I will take care of that for you right now. So I am telling you it is a positive. You can accept it. You cannot accept it, but I am still going to put it out there as a positive, and I see it as a positive, and I'm really proud of you. And they can do whatever they want with it. But as a support person, sometimes you just have to be the voice of, you know what, you're doing great. I see your fight. I acknowledge your fight. I am so proud of you for your fight. You can be mad at me, but I'm going to the other room, and it is what it is. I think it's important for people to recognize your fight.
I agree. People should recognize your fight, and I do believe that we do. I think that in general, when I'm well, I remember all of the cheerleaders, and they do describe that I was less than enthusiastic in the moment. But I think time does show that we appreciate the cheerleaders in our lives,
Good.
whether we pay attention to them in the moment or not. So your appreciation does come. It just comes later.
It's delayed. It's delayed. It's delayed
It's
appreciation.
delayed. It's
Okay.
delayed appreciation. But I think it's also important to talk about the fact that we don't have fire drills when the building's on fire. We don't have tornado drills when there's a tornado. We do these things when things are well. I think one of the reasons that we get complacent is because we're not making plans why we're well. We're always trying to figure out how to get out of the episode when we're in the episode. When the problem occurs, that's when we're like, oh, what do I do? I think that during these stretches of wellness is when we need to have fire drills. Hey, the next time I'm depressed, what am I going to do? The next time that I fear that depression is coming, what am I going to do to avoid it? And you really need to be working with your Dr. Nicole, your psychiatrist, your nurse practitioner, your therapist, your support groups, your peer supporters, your online reading, your podcasts, whatever, and look for ideas so that way, when the next episode comes, when the next depressive spell comes, you don't have to find the fight. You just have to go through the process. Just like if the building was on fire, you're like, look, I'm looking for the flashing lights and I'm looking for the fire exit. You don't have to wonder what you're going to do. You already know what you're going to do because you decided when things were calm. I think this is a real not only big protective factor, but I think it increases people's ability to fight, not be complacent, and it helps with our motivation.
Yeah, I agree with that. I know that in the people I take care of, the people who do the best with their depressions are the ones who have really good plans for how do I deal with life if I find myself depressed again. And some people will say, "Well, I don't want to be negative. I don't want to be thinking about what if I get depressed again. That just feels very defeating, and but that's just realistic. I mean, you're not saying if you do a fire drill, you're not saying, oh, I'm putting ill will towards my house and my house is going to catch on fire or my school is going to catch on fire. No, we do it because we know it is a reality of life. And if it happens, heaven forbid, but if it does, we'll be ready for it. So just like with that depression episode, if it happens, you'll be ready for it. And the people who have planned for it, I think do the best. Are there things, Gabe, that you have done to prepare for that you think would be helpful for other people?
One of the things that I do to prepare is the little things, right? Like I prepare for a car accident by wearing my seatbelt, even though I'm not planning on getting a car accident, right? I prepare for the fire by having smoke detectors, a fire extinguisher, and having the fire drills, even though I'm not planning on getting in a fire. So for bipolar disorder, things like taking your medication on time and not getting complacent with that, things like accurately reporting your symptoms to your doctor, Nicole, and not getting complacent with that, things like honestly evaluating your mood and the things that are going on with your life to make sure that you're not ignoring potential symptoms or episodes. That's all part of the little things that we're already doing. So I know that you talk to a lot of people with bipolar disorder who are experiencing depression, who are going through long stretches. What are your patients reporting to you? Let's get outside Gabe. What are other Gabes saying?
Other Gabes. We're
Other
gonna
Gabes.
we're gonna coin this. All the psychiatrists are Dr. Nicole's, and all of the people living with bipolar disorder are Gabes. I like this world that we've created. Um, you know, my patients are from a variety of walks of life. I love that about my practice, that I get to work with people who socioeconomically are receiving disability income or no income to people who are CEOs. So I get to see the full gamut of the world, and I love that. And interestingly enough, there are things that work for people across that whole spectrum of folks. And so it's not unique to my education level or how much money I make or what resources I have. And I love things that aren't tied to what you have. One thing that I have a lot of folks who have found value in is writing a letter to their depressed self when they're stable, writing that letter to them stable, reminding them of all the things. Like, we were just depressed for 6 months, and this is what happened, and this is how you felt, and this is how I felt, and this is what I wanted to do, and I thought I wanted to die. And then today I took my kids to the park, and my kid learned how to ride a bike, and I remembered that this is a specific example. I remembered that, wow, if I had given up and not fought during that depression, I would have missed this day. And to see that look on my kid's face when they learned how to ride that bike, like, that was a feeling that it was explosive, and it felt so good. And I realized I would have missed that. And so whatever those moments are for you, I think writing a letter to depressed you is valuable, because if and when you ever get to that situation again, you can pull that out. And for some people, those types of things have been so helpful for them in the fight, in the not giving up when things get really, really dark.
When you mentioned your letter, it reminded me of a great tip that I got at a conference once where the person on stage said that they only share positive things on their social media because one, they want to put positivity out in the world and they want to show their friends and family that they're having a good time. But they also do it selfishly because whenever they're depressed or whenever they're feeling low, they scroll back through their Instagram, their Facebook, their timelines,
Yeah.
and they see all these things that they did. And they said it's like looking at a photo album, right? They're just like, oh my God, I forgot about that concert. I forgot about that dinner. I forgot about that time I went with my friends. I forgot about that nature walk. And they're just sort of documenting their life. Yes, they're doing it for social media. They're not pretending that they're not. But it really touched me that they had this like idea. And I must admit, I do it too. Sometimes when I'm feeling down, I scroll through my social media and I get to see pictures of me and my wife at concerts. I get to see pictures from the holidays, right? I scroll back to certain, Facebook is really good for that. It actually has dates. And I'm like, look at all these pictures of Christmas. These are all the things that I would have missed. And I'm glad that I didn't miss them. And it reminds me of things to look forward to. Along the same vein, Dr. Nicole, if I may add another one,
Go for it. I'm intrigued.
I'm really big on making plans for the future, things that maybe I would have normally said no to because it gives me something to look forward to.
Mm.
Whether it is the Broadway play or the movie or the concert, buying the advanced tickets, making the advanced vacation plans. My uncle really cemented this one in my head because he loves cruising. He goes on a cruise at least once a year, often twice. But what he does is he puts that little timer on his phone that counts down to when you board the cruise ship.
Oh, I
So
love that.
yeah, at any given time, whenever he's like having a crappy day at work or whenever he's just bogged down, he's just like, well, 4 months, 3 weeks, 2 days, 3 hours, 27 minutes, and 31 seconds till I'm on a cruise. And he says this provides him with motivation. Now, he's not fighting depression. He's just fighting the doldrums of work. But
Yes.
I got to tell you, I think that is a handy tip that we should explore as well.
Listen, I'm downloading a countdown app right now. I am going to download one and I am going to put every trip on this calendar. Tell your uncle I said thank you. I love that as an idea.
I will pass it along. I definitely want to remind all of the people with bipolar disorder that you need to have a mixture of goals. Goals that you can achieve in a couple of weeks, goals that you can achieve in a year, goals that maybe are more long term. I know that especially in my grandiose moments, all of my goals are like get a PhD, become a doctor, and go to see the Eiffel Tower and see if I can sneak into Eiffel's apartment that's at the top, right? These are not bad goals. I'd love to see the apartment that's at the top of the Eiffel Tower. A lot of history there. But I also need to set some more reasonable ones, like go for a 20-minute walk every day, explore the neighborhood park, finally clean out the basement that my wife has been asking me to do for the last year, right? These are all good goals. Like create a lot, because I don't want people to look at their goals and be like, oh, well, a year went by and I did none of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes we can set ourselves up to fail, and I can see how that can add to our depression. So have some realistic goals. Have some realistic goals and some stretch goals.
Yeah, I like this. So, I thought when we first started this episode that it was going to go one way because I was thinking of fighting more in the dark moments, fighting in the moments when it's so hard to fight. But I literally had never thought of this concept of fighting when you're stable, because it doesn't look like a fight. But I guess internally, it's always a fight because you're always fighting with, what do I do with this thing that could show up at any moment? So the fight is there. It just isn't as apparent to the people around you when you're more stable.
I don't know, Dr. Nicole, what is it that you always say? You've got to stay prepared so you don't have to get ready.
Oh gosh, Gabe, you sure butchered that.
Stay prepared so you don't have to get prepared. I'm trying here. What is it? What's the phrase?
If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
I like it. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Dr. Nicole, I wish that there was one thing that we could say that would pull somebody from depression or motivate somebody to fight. But there is a lot of internal. You've got to find out your why. And I think that's really important for people to figure out, not only while they're depressed, but also while they're well, so that they can remember that why when the depression hits. And I hope we've given some people some things to think about, some things to try, some ideas. There's only one more that I want to hit on, and I don't know why I like this takeaway or why I like this idea, but I've saved it for the end of the show because it's kind of funny.
Okay.
Right. But make a depression playlist, right? Put it on on your audio, right? The songs that empower you, that remind you, that lift you up, that cheer you up, the nostalgic songs, the song that was playing when you had your first kiss or your first dance, or when you saw the person of your dreams who you never asked out, but you still remember fondly, even though you never talked to them, right? Or just the songs that make you happy. Right. I think making a playlist like that and reaching over and just hit play while you lay in bed, I think it can stir up some memories in us. Music connects us and helps us bring back. And it sounds funny, like, oh, you're experiencing a symptom of bipolar disorder, play a playlist. But I'm telling you, I think there's some real value in it.
I don't think that's funny at all, Gabe. I think, I know this is going to sound very cheesy, but I do believe that music can be the soundtrack to our lives. If you think about, there are so many things that we tie music to, whether it's a movie we like, or it's an experience or a relationship or an event. I think that's really a fantastic idea to have a playlist, because it literally requires you to do nothing but hit a button. It's already there. It's already together. You just have to push the button. I think that may be one of your best ideas I've heard you say so far, Gabe.
Dr. Nicole, I love that. And I love this podcast. And hopefully, when you are depressed, on your playlist, maybe a motivating episode of the Inside Bipolar podcast could make an appearance on the list. but I completely understand if it doesn't. But keeping that in mind, wherever you downloaded this episode, please follow or subscribe to the show because you don't want to miss a thing. And do us a favor, share the show with the people you know. Share your favorite episodes on social media. Bring it up in a support group. Tell your favorite peer supporter. Tell your Dr. Nicole. Tell your therapist. Call somebody. Tell your mom. People need to know about the show so we can grow. And my name is Gabe Howard, and I'm an award-winning public speaker who could be available for your next event. I would love to see you live. I also wrote the book, Mental Illness is an Asshole and Other Observations, which you can get on Amazon. But I'm telling you, you're going to want to go over to my website, gabehoward.com, and get it there because I can sign it and throw in some free stuff. You can also follow me on TikTok and Instagram at Ask a Bipolar.
And I'm Dr. Nicole Washington. You can find me on all social media platforms at Dr. Nicole Psych or at my website, drnicolepsych.com.
And we will see everybody next time on the Inside Bipolar podcast.
You've been listening to Inside Bipolar from Healthline Media and PsychCentral.com. Have feedback for the show? Email us at show@psychcentral.com. Previous episodes can be found at psychcentral.com/IBP or on your favorite podcast player. Thank you for listening.